Hello and welcome everybody. Today I'm here with my buddy Michael Wolf, who's an amazing game developer working on a really cool project in Unity that I thought you would all be very interested in finding out more about. And I really want to talk to Michael about the whole development process along the way, because I've seen what he's been doing. I saw this game at GDC last year, the kind of initial concepts, and then I saw the fun playable prototype this year, and I was kind of surprised by lots of just really fun moments of excitement and just little moments of joy that I got in just the first minute alone. So it's a really fun game, and it seems like a really cool project. I'm really excited to have you on here, Michael. So thank you for joining me and sharing this experience.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So the game is called Wax Heart, and you've been working on this thing for a little over a year now, I think?
Actually, 2 years, counting pre-production.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about that? So first, let's just really quickly introduce the game. Can you tell everybody kind of a elevator pitch of what the game is, why it's neat, and what kind of maybe you'll cover some of the things that stood out to me as really cool.
Yeah, I'll give you the long version. So, Wax Heart is an immersive atmospheric horror 3D platformer where you play as a little wax boy with a lantern for a heart, journeying through a sunless world in search of their lost memory. And as you explore, you discover the cruel fate of the world and the role you play in it.
Nice. So, and you're essentially, for people who can't see it or haven't seen it yet, you're running around with this candle like right inside of you. You can see through your character, and you're lighting up the world and using that to solve puzzles and kind of beat the game, right? Or as the
Yeah,
core part.
yeah. You can think of it. So it's a very dark world, and as you travel through it, you illuminate new parts of it. There's things in the environment that light up as you pass through it, and you have this radius around you that is your ring of light. And as you and this serves as both a way for you to kind of reach out and touch the world and change it, but it's also what alerts monsters to your presence. So a huge part of the puzzle and gameplay design is around controlling this ring of light so that it doesn't alert monsters. It actually, I like to call it an inverted stealth system. So in most 3D stealth games, you'll have a cone of vision coming from characters. And I'm trying to do a stealth platformer. And in order for that to read really clearly, you need to have the volume of how things detect you very clear. And I found by having all these enemies with like big cones and stuff, it just did not work out. It was just like really ugly looking. So I inverted it. So instead of having a volume of area that you're trying to specifically avoid, you're trying to control your volume from touching the points in space, being the tips of the candles. All the monsters and characters in the world are candle people, and they have little wicks on their head. And when those light up, monsters will attack you.
Oh, yeah, that is freaking awesome. I found it to just be like a really cool gameplay mechanic. I played a lot of stealth games, and this was a bit different, and it was really kind of like lighthearted and cute at the same time, which really worked for me. I was like, oh, this is like this is fun, cute, and like approachable for everybody, but also a little bit scary, like trying to get it down and move around everything without dying, which I, of course, did pretty quickly. So you've been working on this game for 2 years now, you said, and a lot of that was pre-production. How much has been actual production and how much was pre-production? Was it like a 50-50, like you spent a year just getting ready, planning it out, designing the whole thing, or can you break that down a little?
Yeah, I mean, it might be easier if I just kind of give you the story of the project and the weird context that it's in.
I think that would be great.
Let's go all the way back to about 3 years ago. I'm trying to start up my own indie studio. That's my dream. That's what I want to do. And I'm finding it really difficult. I don't have enough connections. I don't really have that. I don't really know any artists that can help me. And it's suggested to me by a friend to enroll at Laguna College of Art and Design in their game design program. And I decide, I look into it and I take the plunge and I enroll as getting my master's degree in game design at LCAD. That's the short version. And the way that program works is the 2 year master's degree, where you finish a project by the end. And having the experience that I have, I was able to start a year ahead of time. Normally, they start in their second year, and I start immediately. I build actually, the game starts with the narrative design, which was for a narrative design class with Chris Bateman as the professor in that class. He literally wrote the book on game narrative, and really awesome professor. And I come up with a design for a very abstract kind of thing, inspired kind of by like Limbo, Inside, Journey, and this narrative. I'm really happy with it, and he really likes it, and everyone I show it to really likes it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to make this happen, and that becomes my thesis project. And I'll talk more about like what my thesis research is about. But I have an opportunity to pitch early the project to a group of bachelors of game art students. The way the school works is that the bachelors of game art program, which is really well known to like feed directly into like Blizzard, Riot, like it's a really strong game art program.
And it's really local to them, right? They're right down the street.
yeah. No, actually, like I passed Blizzard on the way to class, and so those students have as a graduation requirement, they have to work in a class we call GA 400, Game Art 400, and where they need to work in a game production, usually with a master's student project. So essentially, the expectation is that these students are going to be working with me, and a couple of really lucky things happen. One thing is that enrollment was down for my year. Normally there's like 10 game design students, and there was only 3. So I ended up getting a very large team. And so we enter and we just start pre-production. And by the end of and throughout pre-production, I'm also prototyping it. Like I've already like built out a lot of the systems, tried a bunch of things. At one point, our character had a dodge roll, and I like tested that for a while, and I'm like, this is way too like actiony, and I like cut it. Did a lot of exploration of the mechanics. What's currently present and shown in the demo is a very small cut of the mechanics we have. We've got like pressure plate mechanics, rope and pulley systems, lots of like in-world puzzles, and all of that's reserved for later, but it's built. And this all happened during pre-production. And during that time, we developed the story. We made animatics. We have like animatic cutscenes for multiple big points in the story, including the end. And we developed a lot of the world, and we have a bunch of areas planned out, and we have key art for all of them. And then we entered fall, like end of summer, beginning of fall 2022. We enter like production, and we're looking at like, okay, if this is going to get made, what needs to happen? And we decide this is the scope of what we're making. I learned a lot about like, I thought I made a really conservative like scope, and it still was too much.
Everyone does.
I planned like 1.5 of our 4 planned levels, and that was dumb. The second half is gone. We ended up putting content for that second half in the first level because the art kit, I learned a lot about art production. Like the art kit, it was simpler to just continue to use the kit we've already made instead of make a whole bunch of assets for parts that's like barely experienced. So for basically the school year from September through May of 2023, that is our vertical slice production period. And what you saw at GDC was a slice of our vertical slice meant to be short and completable for the show floor, so it's like 15 minutes. Our full game our full gameplay has much more content, and it's about an hour, depending on how fast you go. Some people get it in like 40 minutes. But we have an hour of content, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, is that the full size of the game? Like the full planned size is an hour of content, or that's the demo, the vertical slice, and then you're looking at a bit more?
Yeah, so the vertical slice, I'm going to be pitching to publishers. I'm trying to get in contact. Like, I would be awesome to talk to like Annapurna, Finji. I'm trying to reach out to publishers and get a deal. The full game, it should be about 5 to 6 hours, and has in 4 areas, gameplay areas, zones. We have like a whole story progression and a bunch of stuff like already built in pre-production, tested, people really like, and I want to show this to publishers. That would be a really long period. I'm just diving into this. I don't have technically. I haven't worked on a indie project nearly as big as this. I've worked on a lot of small indie projects. Nothing, nothing this big. Sorry, I'm ranting.
No, it's good. You're in the same boat as I think a lot of people. And while you're working on this, just to clarify for everybody, you're also working full time on video games in Unity, right? You're still doing something else, just
mobile games,
different type of game.
Yeah, I'm working. I'm been really transparent with my company about this. So I'm currently working at Mobilityware. I don't know what I should and shouldn't say for the recording.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, Mobilityware is an awesome company, and great meetups there. I highly recommend you go check them out if they kick those off again.
Yeah, so like Mobilityware has been great, and when I first got an offer there, like over 3 years ago now, I was really hesitant because long term mobile games aren't what I want to be doing, but I decided I'm going to go into this and I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow as an engineer here. I'm going to become more skilled, and I'm going to learn a lot and come out the other side. I'll be better for it. And that's so true. Like I've learned so much working at Mobilityware, especially just learning from Curtis Murphy, who's my boss, and also a teacher at LCAD.
Curtis is awesome.
Curtis is so awesome. And I just learned so much about what it means to be a leader. I've learned a lot about engineering risk is another whole thing. There'd be times where it's like, hey, why do we have a rule against like using coroutines or something like that? And it's like, okay, maybe like the fact that we don't use coroutines at the company is sure it might be a conversation, but me trying to do it for this specific case here is a lot of risk to our company because a lot of other engineers aren't using coroutines regularly, and we may experience some really weird things on edge case builds not working correctly with them. And in my normal stuff, I use coroutines all the time, but that's a different thing. I'm trying to talk about risk, but
that there are scenarios where things. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I got the same from working in a big company. You see that there are things that you would do as a solo or indie dev that the risk is small. It's a small chance that something goes wrong, but if something goes wrong, it's really, really bad that it goes wrong. So you just avoid those a lot of those small risks and make rules around them. I totally agree. And on that part about learning too, I think that while I learn a lot of stuff online and from practicing and reading, I also got a ton of information just from watching other experienced developers do things and seeing how they did those things and being able to go in and then ask them questions and have discussions and having lunch discussions that are about the reason that the code is set up this way instead of about something that's not going to help me. You end up with a lot of that, like the back and forth and the communication. I feel like it's a great way to grow. I highly recommend everybody before they make their own game, if you can, just get a job in the industry for a while. You're going to make contacts, meet people. And it sounds like you even found out about that program through people at work.
Yeah. Two people there are professors there. There's Curtis and then also Brandon Clough, who's a designer on the team. And speaking of this whole, learning part, I've been able to kind of pay it forward. And it's another unique thing about the project. So at our right now, if somebody asked me, how big is my team? It's a complex question. The short answer is 50. Did we talk about this at GDC?
No, I was going to ask you. I was thinking I really wonder how big this team is and how much it changes, because I'm sure it's got to vary some.
It fluctuates. So I also have this experience before LCAD where I was heavily involved in student game development clubs and stuff, and I really have a strong understanding of how it really works, what it's like to be a student trying to get into games or trying to work in games. And the reality of it is knowing that, okay, people are going to have very small amount of time to contribute, and people are going to come in and out. Things are going to happen in lives. I might have a key member have to dip out. So from the onset, the Waxheart project has been designed to be a place to be highly flexible and to be also a place of learning. So every person who joins the team, I tell them this, hey, I can't offer you financial compensation. But what I can offer you is is experience working on a large team, credits on the game that will in some form reach some kind of publication. Worst case scenario, not worst case, but at the very least, there'll be a public demo with your name on it at some point, which is something we may do in June, a public demo over Vertical Slice, depending on how publisher conversations go. So experience working on a large team, credits on the game that you can use in your portfolio, and the ability to the networking opportunities from that team, and direct mentorship where applicable. So all the engineers on my team are not from Laguna College of Art and Design. They're either currently like at UCI, or they're have graduated and are trying to find that first job. And there's a lot of people who need to get that initial experience. And so that's what I offer, is that initial experience that you can use on a resume. And I'm really proud to say that quite a few members of our team have used Waxheart during their interviews and conversations, and have found that first job. And of course, that means I lose those people who I'm like training and everything, but it's like also really awesome. I don't know. I feel like I'm putting good out into the world by doing that.
Yeah, it's got to be bittersweet. You get like this awesome developer, they learn all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I got this job." Like, "Oh, that is amazing," but I'm gonna miss having you on the team. Yeah, I totally agree. It happens when you're working in the industry too, and you see people leave, and you're like, "Oh, I really don't want to see that person leave," but they just got, they went. A lot of time they're going on to some project. They're like, "I really would like to work on that project with them though too."
Yeah.
And then you end up, they call you up and say, "Hey, you want to come work on this project with me?" Half the time.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I expect that to happen soon, I'm sure. I would expect that some of those students are going to be reaching out to you, trying to recruit you while you're trying to make your own game. You're like, "I'm busy making the game still."
I mean, I would hope to still be working on it like in a sustainable capacity in a few years. Well, there's so much up in the air right now at the end of this vertical slice period. I don't know where I'm going to be.
How do you deal with that when people leave the team? Can you talk a little bit about that, like from the art and programming side?
Before I said about 50 people active, right? The average contribution might be 1 to 2 hours a week. So if people are putting a small amount in, some people, it's you get what you put into it. So you get out what you put into it. So like some people are really awesome and just like putting a ton of time into it and making huge impact on the project. Some people are just working on a prop here and there and say that they worked on it. And that's because they've got a ton of classes or something like that. But in general, we're just like we emphasize communication beyond all else. Like the one thing we don't like tolerate on the team is ghosting. Like hey, like you just got to tell us. We're very ready for people to have to leave, but we'll just like during our weekly meetings, we have a big like Sunday meeting, and we say, okay, we're using Trello, so like take this Trello task. This is when, we expect to have it done. Tell us if it's going to be delivered on time. Only take tasks that you can reasonably accomplish. So if people dip out, we just hand over whatever tasks they have. It does mean that, when it comes to engineering, there's like ownership over certain parts of the code base. That's really hard to translate. But I'm code reviewing everything. All engineers get code reviews from me. And I'm able to, if I lose somebody with a big part of ownership, I know that I can personally pick up that slack as a fallback. And in general, the next engineer would be able to, they're starting from ground one, but they'll be learning something.
Oh, that's a nice benefit, I think, of being an engineer, knowing the code too, as well. Like you got something that a lot of people can't do. Are you writing code too then, or are you mostly finding yourself doing reviewing and managing, or is it like write code, or do you have to resist the urge to write code? Is it like oh no, I need to do these managey things. I need to let my programmers and stuff do stuff too. Like how do you deal with all that?
So how I deal with it is I don't sleep much. They're generally during like most of the time, I would say I'll take on tasks that I know that like really I'm the only person that can really do, because they're heavy design based like code stuff. There's like stuff with a lot of exploration and game design elements, or the really, really tech arty, which is kind of a specialty of mine, and like tech art in heavy engineering and tech. So I'll take on tasks that really I should be doing, and I try to give things off where I think people are ready for. So I will be writing code, but it'll take me a while to get to things, and I have a task to like change a backend system to do something for a while, and like just living with it for a while. And
Hey.
yeah, so I try to make it so that to answer your question more concisely, I try to not get too hands on and get controlling about the code base and let my engineers take ownership as they can. But when things really come down to the wire, I do get really deep into the code base. I've written most of our core architecture. I'll say that.
Okay. That kind of makes sense. As the first developer on there and a programmer, I expect that probably half the code in the end will be written by you, or at least 75% will have been touched or seen by you, or you're kind of actively somewhat contributing. So that's cool. But what about the art side? How do you deal with that? You've got a bunch of artists, and I don't know if you can talk about how many artists you've got there, and they're all probably from various backgrounds with different styles and stuff. How do you get it all to kind of come together and look right? Do you have like an art lead, an art manager that's running all of that keeps it all good, or do you do that yourself? Or
So yeah, we have leads. So we do. I have an art director, Kay Sosnovsky is the art director on the project. Has done most of our key concept art and has also been getting an engine and doing some set dressing here and there. And we have on our Discord, basically we have Discord and Trello, and when we'll have during our team meetings, the artists will like kind of do critique and say, hey, I don't think this is in our style. But most people like they hit this out. We have an art Bible. A lot of them are trained at LCAD, and so they know how to match a style and what's important there. What I've had to teach is actual engine side implementation. Like, for example, set your pivot point to the bottom of the object. Hey, if you're giving me a kit of different rocks and rubble, please separate those meshes so that I can move them around. And also like teaching was like, hey, this is what a prefab is. And you need to make sure that you have a prefab with the material on it and update the prefab to update your prop everywhere it's used. And a lot of things that they really won't have any opportunity to have experience with, that's what they get on wax art. The real, like, how your art is used in context and how it'll work when you're working at a company. I mean, assuming you're using Unity. I've had to teach version control. For a lot, I've had to teach like the basic, like using the editor, the Unity editor, and also just a lot of miscellaneous things that you forget you had to learn at some point. Like I had one thing where somebody put their whole Git repository in their OneDrive folder, and it's like, oh, that's not something you should do.
that might be a problem,
right? It was like a nightmare, and everything went really slow, and it slowed down their whole computer too.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so there's like this technical direction part of it, basically, that I've been doing. I've learned recently that like depending on the studio, the art director's job might be purely on the aesthetic, like visual design layer, and then some art directors are also like technical, like the pipeline, like hey, like make sure that it's like okay, so we've got the model unwrapped. Okay, pass it over for texturing, and okay, make sure it gets into the engine and used. So we've been discovering a lot of processes that way. I don't know where I was going with that thought.
Oh, no, I think it's interesting. I think it's important that you have that person doing the art direction, because a lot of the time people kind of skip that and they try to do it loosely themselves, but then don't actually do the job. A lot of indie and solo smaller developers, like the producer, will try to be the art director as well, but they don't have the time or the expertise for that kind of stuff. It's a very, very important, very separate skill. Before we go on, I want to make sure that we've mentioned the page. It's waxheart.info. for everybody who wants to check it out. I think we mentioned earlier, but if not, go check it out now. Go to waxheart.info, watch the trailer, check out the Steam page, go wishlist it. Assuming that's up. It'll be up. If it's not up right now, go back and wishlist it so that you can get in there. I was curious about kind of problems and issues that you've run into, though. You've been doing this for like a year. Has there been anything that really stands out as problematic or workflow related things or issues with your engine choice or engine versions or anything like that that's popped up and been problematic, or that you think people could learn from if they're building their own game, or things that you would have maybe thought through or thought more about or done differently if you were doing the next game?
Yes, there are plenty of things that we've learned. And let me think on which exactly I should talk about. So I think that, okay, I'll start with just one big lesson that's more broad game development thing, which is the word level design. What does that mean? Level design means something different to literally everybody. And you want to be very, very clear about what layer of level design you're talking about, especially when you're bringing other people into it. A thing that happened on our project, we had multiple level designers come aboard to help me, build and make things, try out different puzzles and stuff like that. And I found that some people that I brought on had the understanding that level design was about architecture, was about the big shape, the vista view, the aesthetic look of the level and shape of it. And for me, what level design really means to me, especially for this game, it's this moment-to-moment experience. It is the puzzles. It's what's going on in the player's head. So, for example, if we're talking about, we have like box pushing puzzles. So if this, for me, I'm thinking about the level design of, okay, you have a box and you need to push it over to this ledge and climb up it and then climb up the ledge. This is the shape of it, and it needs to have these kind of specific parameters to it so players learn different things as they're pushing the box. And, when I'm talking about that with them, and when it wasn't using clear enough language, they're thinking about how this ledge looks, and they put a ton of time into the visuals of this ledge, and they miss these important details about, you want to make sure that they have to push forward and then to the side so they see how the box actually moves, and that was on me as a director. I wasn't clear enough with these things because, and just being on the same page with language is a huge thing. Another big thing is gray box pipeline. Like, a big thing that happened on our project is our first level was done months and months ago. And we had art, we had set dress, we had art in it. And the level design sucked. It wasn't good. I've learned a lot since then. But like, I did too much too quickly instead of teaching like incrementally, like, okay, here's this mechanic. Here's an introduction to this concept. And then you iterate on that concept. And then you introduce another concept, and then you iterate on that. Now you mix them, and now it's like kind of like a melody. It's kind of like a music thing. And what I was doing is I just kind of, how do we put it, like blew my load like way too quickly with like I slapped them with like the first puzzle that we have with our monsters in the game. So the first puzzle in that version is now the last puzzle. Right? It's like there's like I didn't realize how much I'd broken up. It was an awesome learning opportunity for me, but it also really affected our pipeline. And it was a huge morale loss for our team to say like, hey, we're scrapping this whole level design and we're starting over. And the game is so much better for it. It's a big win in that way. But it's also like, if we kind of reviewed the level design before set dressing, that would have been a big thing.
So you'd recommend making it kind of fun before making it pretty this time?
Yeah.
It sounds like you kind of went through, made it like get your aesthetic and kind of look right, but forgot about skipped the fun part and part of that is probably a side effect of playing it too much already. Like, you'd played it so much that like Yeah, that was an easy puzzle, like super simple tutorial. Do it with your eyes closed.
Yeah, no, of course, it's a curse of knowledge in game design, and I probably should have done some blind external play tests with the gray box before approving for like set dressing. And looking back, I do think it was worth our time to set dress it because we needed to prove our aesthetic, which was really complex, which was difficult to see. There's a lot of visibility issues with such a dark game. So it was still valuable to do what we did there, and there's no way we could have known that at the time that it would end up needing to be redone. But so I don't entirely regret it, but I would do it differently.
Yeah, let's say you were doing, I'm curious though, if you were doing it different, let's say you're making another game, it's different aesthetics, maybe you got similar, like you've got really important lighting and visuals, it's got to be, so, but it's totally different. What would your process be there? Would you like are you thinking you might like gray box out the gameplay levels and then also have a separate kind of setup for the aesthetics, like some visual scenes that are that, or would you just kind of slap it onto them and just not worry too much about the visual, but try to get it not worry about it being tied to the level so much? Or
I would probably do the aesthetic tests separately. And maybe just do like, flat textures, maybe a few, like throw in a couple of our kit pieces here and there, because the kit's still being made while we're doing the gray boxing. So I might maybe slap some things in, but I wouldn't have asked an artist to dress this whole level before we're really more confident about the gray box design. Okay. And so like we have, as mentioned before, we've done like one... Well, actually, we put this into practice recently. Like, we have a new section that is like a library. And we play tested it, and we play tested a lot to see where we're at with it, and are we going to, fill this with content. And while there are still some things that need tweaking, we're like, okay, this is 90% like of this level we're sure we want to address. And so we started on that. And so now that is done, now I need to adjust some geometry here. And that is more work because it's set dressed. But it's not a full redo. It's nothing like huge. But yeah, in a different game. I'm sorry, that probably doesn't answer your question.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. I think you've kind of answered it pretty well. Also, if you haven't heard, we opened up tickets for GameDev Guild Conference 2023. If you missed GDC, this is your chance to get the latest game dev knowledge and network with other developers, all from your own desk at a much lower price. GameDev Guild is a big 5-day online game developer conference that takes everything an in-person conference offers and makes it accessible for everyone. The conference features over 35 talks and live Q&A sessions from industry experts, and we've set up a full virtual expo hall which lets you network with all the other attendees, speakers, and sponsors. We just updated our schedule and we're really excited about all the amazing speakers that'll be presenting at this year's conference. On top of that, we've added tons of bonuses to the Pro Pass and we're constantly adding more. I want it to be like Build, where even if you can't make it or you don't like the conference at all, the bonuses alone are more than worth it. So if you're looking to learn new tips and tricks, improve your game dev workflow, and just become a better game developer, stay updated with the latest stuff in the game dev space, I definitely recommend you go check out the link in the description, find out more, and come join us live at GameDev Guild 2023. It's really cool, like getting to see somebody going through a project, especially at this scale, because most of the indie devs that I talk to are working like solo or with a team of like maybe like 2 to 5 people, and you've got this kind of like big dynamic team that's got a lot of moving parts to it, and I think that the end result kind of shows too. Like you're doing a really good job, and the game is pretty damn impressive. And you're still not even at your full demo phase yet, so it's looking good and it's kind of feeling good. One of the things I wanted to make sure to talk about, since a lot of the people watching are pretty technical, was some of the maybe technical tricks or things that you kind of came up with along the way. Was there anything like that you thought was going to be difficult, you found a simple trick to make it really easy, or refactored or rechange things around, or anything just that kind of stood out as like interesting or exciting while you were doing the engineering part of this?
Oh yeah, there's a couple of ones. So what we've got here is a tool called Advanced Scene Manager. So essentially, well, the problem that we found in that first version is that the moment somebody starts set dressing it, level design can't touch it anymore. Basically, we have a lot of people who need to be touching different parts of this. And given the way that our project is structured, we want to allow as many people to touch the project at a time. We want them to touch the levels and stuff. And so, like, people can touch prefabs, but when it really comes to placement and visuals, looks, lighting, what we have is essentially an additive scene loader, basically a system. So here, basically, this is like level streaming, essentially. But by breaking this up as we went, we're able to allow, like, okay, this person is going to be replacing these blocky guys. So we could just give them just this section to work on, and they only touch this level, and that's the end of it. And that's been really, really valuable. I wish we did this earlier, basically.
Nice. You're using, you said one of the assets, the advanced scene management?
Yeah. So advanced scene management, they're still figuring out a lot of things as an asset, but it's been pretty good for us. I recommend it. And it's been really useful. Like, for example, like while I was working on, I'm working on level design and like tweaking and adjustments over here, and at the same time, somebody's touching this scene in here. And by having them as separate like scene entities, it makes things a lot simpler. In other games, you might try to do this as prefabs, but I think just additive scenes is a pretty useful part of this. And we've also done it for optimization. So when we're like dying and reloading, when the player dies and reloads, we'll only like load I'll just show the whole level, but we only like load a relevant chunk, right? So
right. So you're just loading in the part that they're actually going to see and not making them wait for the whole thing.
Yeah. We have all our checkpoints on our master. Oh, my gizmos are off. We have all of our checkpoints on our kind of master like scene, our main scene that's always loaded. That's like the player and all our managers in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this tool. It kind of demonstrates like how things are associated.
Yeah, it looks great. Did you have any issues with the lighting while you were doing that splitting out your scenes?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I'll show an example. I wonder if the church is an example of it. There's also
a very light, heavy game. So
yeah. So okay, some of these scenes will have like this type of skybox and stuff in it. But like, it won't. They don't share a skybox. It's the main scene here is our true lighting environment. But so like the actual like lighting settings for the sub scenes, they'll look weird when you're working on them individually. So what I like to do is I just try to synchronize that manually. Unity does not have API to set a scene through an editor code. You can't change lighting settings. You have to use the click on things in the inspector.
Is it a right click, copy lighting settings, paste lighting settings?
I mean, yeah, like one by one, basically. Yeah, like this is what we're seeing here. This is a part of our like new content that we're going to be updating because a lot of it's just like tilables, and stuff right now. But like that's as far as lighting, it's not really a problem because we always have the main scene, and then I open up main and I open up church basement here. It's like it inherits the lighting settings from the main.
Yeah, I would imagine your biggest problem is when somebody's working on it without the lighting, and then they don't realize, and then they mess it up and put it in.
Yeah, lighting is a big challenge. You only do
that a couple times, then you learn.
Yeah, luckily, since our character is like your main light source, generally we like it doesn't really affect too much. But we do want to do things like putting like point lights in the environment in specific areas to help illuminate certain stuff. And I do want our lighting to really get a good pass. And that's coming up. And there may be new challenges that we're going to discover as we really work on this. But
I think it looks pretty good as it is. I'm sure it'll end up pretty good. I'm sure it'll end up great. Really, like I said, it's weird how different the game looks in the scene view mode while you're flying around versus in game view. Like when you see it like actually all lit up with your character and stuff, and even they're just turning the lights on and off. It's a very, very drastic difference.
It is.
I was curious, what version of Unity are you using? It looks like I'm seeing 2021.
Yeah, 2021 3.4. We're actually kind of in a funny place. This is like the last version before the next version of Universal Render Pipeline. And so we're kind of left behind in some areas. There are some ERP features. This was during a specific period where Unity was still... I don't know where it is as much now, but as I understand it, Universal Render Pipeline got a lot better right after this. And I've had to fight uphill with about a couple of things. Like our decals are barely working. So like we have a blob shadow for the character because it's a platformer and you need to be able to see where the right below you is. But our blob shadow will clip sometimes, and that's not how decals should work.
The decals have gotten a lot better.
Yeah. So there's decals. Honestly, there's some HDRP stuff that I'm kind of thinking maybe we should have done that. I was hoping that we wouldn't need to, but as we get further and further into it, there's some advantages. We're using an asset for our fog system, chronic volumetric fog and mist. And I would like to play with the HDRP fog system, volumetric fog, but I would need more time. I would need to not be in full production, basically.
Yeah. The HDRP fog looks very, very cool, though. What's keeping you from upgrading to the latest URP? Is there something specific that stands out that's going to cause an issue, or is it just risk management, or what's going on there?
Risk management is probably the operative word. Jason, I challenge you. I might say, okay, no, I'll just answer the question. We have over 50 people on the project. Most of them barely know how to work on their editor. People have installed their editor in the wrong place because they're very, very green. So it takes
it's on the flash drive.
It's work for me to teach some of this stuff. We have done version updates on the team. We have. And we've done it twice. Once it was okay, this solves this big issue that we were having, and then we discover, oh no, this was 21.28 or something, I don't remember. And it's okay, we need to upgrade again. And then we did that, and then it created so many headaches for people. I have some people who are people were opening their project in the wrong version and then pushing the version change. And it's because they don't have the oversight of working a full-time job. They're again contributing a little bit at a time and learning a little as they go. So it becomes a lot of overhead. So if we do a version update, it would probably be after we after our vertical slice is finished in May. And then I'll be figuring out what our situation is with finances and funding. But the team size is probably going to go down dramatically because there's no longer a student project. It's no longer something people are getting school hours for their class. So when the team size shrinks down, that might be a good opportunity to do an update. I'm not sure which version. My experience at Mobilityware, I know that jumping on the most recent version is not usually a good idea.
Yeah,
But
depending on what you're doing, especially if you plan on releasing soon,
yeah.
or your game is already out. I've done that. Probably, I've broken games before.
Yeah. Um, but so yeah, I guess it just really depends on our
I
like
think it
what the
makes a lot of
opportunity.
sense if you've got that many people and you've got that wide of a skill set and stuff. The problems and the wasted time that you're going to get from the version upgrade are probably not worth it until you have that point where you're like, okay, this feature is here. We need this feature. We have to upgrade. Like that's our only option. That's
Yeah.
yeah. You get to that. It's either got to be easy to upgrade, like, hey, everybody in the office, we're going to 22.3 or whatever, and you just yell and everybody upgrades, and they're like, good, or it's got to be something where you need it. I totally agree. You get to
Yeah.
that bigger size, you got to be like, this feature has to be in our game, and we don't have a choice. We're all gonna have to learn it. I'm gonna have to deal with the pain of this was built in the wrong Unity version. Are you sure you want to open it? Popping up constantly.
Yeah. And there's also all the packages. We've got a ton of package dependencies, and it's we yeah. So like basically all of our asset systems need to get updated to match, and it's a bit of a that also makes it more complicated too. That's all
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a lot of stuff to do. I recommend if you're building a project, upgrade early and like start. I generally would recommend starting with like the stuff that's like kind of near the bleeding edge or on the bleeding edge, because by the time you're anywhere near stable, it's going to be at that stable point too, right? Like I'd
Yeah.
say like start with the tech stream or the latest LTS and be ready, or the thing that's about to LTS, I should say, and then
Mhm.
you know that then you won't have as much upgrading to do in the future because stuff always breaks and stuff always goes wrong, and it's almost once you're live or in like full on production, it's almost never a simple decision. I mean, sometimes it is, but it's almost never. Most of the time, it's like, oh yeah, it was a simple decision the first time, and then everything broke, and we lost a week of work, and now it's now we think about it more.
Yeah. Um, Definitely, upgrades are a whole nightmare too.
Cool. Well, the game I think is looking really great, and I think that everybody should probably go sign up, check it out, try it out, play the demo as soon as it's available, and add it to the wish list. Is there somewhere that other than the waxheart.info page, is there anywhere else that they can find out some Michael Wolf stuff or see anything else you've been doing?
Yeah, so there's my Twitter and my itch.io. We have also socials for the project. So let me see. Is it an easy to get link? Yeah, just Michael Wolf 95 at .itch.io. It's not at. Crap.
Nice. Yeah, we'll make sure to link all of those
Here.
too. And then for publishers, if there are publishers that are interested and want to learn more, can they just reach out through email? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, best way to get a hold of me through email. There's just michaelwolf95 at gmail.com, or the project's email, which would be waxheartgame at gmail.com.
All right.
I'll send you both of those links.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that all this stuff pops up on the screen and is down in the description as well for people who are interested. I think that you should check it out though, and if you're looking at publishing, Michael is a pretty amazing developer doing some really really cool stuff. And like I said, I was very impressed with the demo at GDC. Even just in the first few minutes, it was lots of just pleasant surprises and a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what the final game looks like when it comes out. By the way, last question for you. The final game on platforms, are you targeting primarily Steam and PC, or is this like...
Yeah, so if we can get porting offers from publishers, we would do that, and probably, or at least if we get funding to port, I can do my own porting usually, but it would be, yeah, it's targeting PC, Steam is the main look. Now, if Epic wants to do something with me, I'll do Epic Game Store. And then there's, I think, yeah. all consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch would be really cool.
Yeah, I could totally see it as a Switch game, which is why I was asking. I'm like, this seems like a perfect Switch, or you definitely got to get it to the Steam Deck too.
Yeah,
There
Steam
aren't
Deck.
very many Steam Deck titles, and I'm always looking for something that's like kind of built for the Steam Deck that works well on that platform. And I think this game would fit in there exactly. It's like exactly the kind of thing that fits there or works for it. So anyway, I just want to say thanks again, Michael, for talking to us and answering all of my questions. If people have questions for Michael, please drop a comment, shoot me an email, and I will send them over to him. And maybe we can do some follow-ups when you're getting closer to release and get people out there. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the technical stuff and some other things, or about the release and your awesome new production deal. So hopefully that happens soon, and we get to hear a lot more about it. So thanks again, Michael. You got any final words or parting words you want to leave with everybody?
So thank you for having me, and I you look forward to seeing the game someday.
One last question.
Oh, last question. Got it.
For people who want to make their own game and have been thinking about doing this themselves, something similar, what would you recommend? When should they start? What should they do? Is there anything that they should do first, or should they just get on it? Or
Yeah, you can make your first game now. Just open up Unity, do the rollerball tutorial. Unity Learn is an amazing resource. There are so many ways to just get started. You are always going to be finding yourself stuck if you are afraid of coding. Coding is not the math that you grew to hate in school. Coding can be lots of fun, and there are games about learning to code, if that says anything for you. So, yeah, don't be afraid of coding, and start now.
I totally agree. Just get out there, start doing it. Start writing the code, making the games, and getting the stuff out there. You'll learn a lot from it, and you'll. I don't know anybody that has regretted that they started making games and thought like, I really wish I had waited another 5 years to get into it. Like, if only I had waited 5 more years, it would have been better. Everybody always just thinks like, I wish I had done it earlier. So definitely get out there, be like Michael, make some awesome games, and start sharing them with people. All right. Exactly. Thanks again. And thanks to everybody who's joining us and watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and all that stuff.
All that.